Hey guys, I've been excited to review this one for a long time because it's gotten so much promotional coverage. I feel like the company's done a great job. They've tapped into the iconic look of the 1970s mini motorbikes, and it's just fun. I mean, it's got those big, 4-inch, actually 4.25-inch wide fat tires, but these ones are slicks, where a lot of the other kind of crowd-funded e-bikes like the Saunders had knobby tires, and there's something fun, kind of young about a bike that looks like this that you could kind of take anywhere. It's simple. There's no adjustable seat height or no frame sizes to choose from. You just kind of make it work. You got that classic banana seat. You've got this integrated like fork stem handlebar situation going on up here. It's neat. It definitely captured my imagination, but I wanted to be as objective as possible in comparing this to some of the other electric bikes I've reviewed, and talk about the price, talk about the weight, all of that kind of stuff. Because what I saw online was like, of the future for cities, and like amazing and different colors. There's like the gold one, and the language seems to be like the best electric bike, world's best electric bikes. It's just a lot. It's like, that's great, but what's the actual experience like on the Super 73? So I've got one of the originals here. It's not brand new. Someone purchased this. We're in like late 2017 right now, and they brought it into the shop. You can see that the brake lever is actually bent, and we've got a little bit of damage here at the end of the handlebar. I'm hanging out with Chris Nolte, who owns Propel Bikes in Brooklyn.
Hey guys.
And can you tell me what the customer said? I wasn't there when they dropped it off for repair.
I guess he said he got it online and he just kind of didn't have such a great experience so far. I don't know that it's speaking to the bike necessarily, but I think he just maybe didn't have too much mechanical skills, and he said that the brakes weren't working really well and the wheel fell off. I don't know.
The wheel fell off?
I really didn't make sense to me, because he said that it did, but it's kind of weird because I think that the chain, it would make it difficult. But then looking at it, I guess like the kind of quick release skewer, maybe it's not really the most appropriate axle for this type of application.
Such a heavy bike. That's true. So to give you guys some stats, 100mm hub spacing with a 9mm quick release skewer up front, and I think it's 170 in the rear with a 9mm quick release skewer. A lot of like heavier duty bikes, mountain bikes, are now coming with like 15mm through axles up front, 12mm in the rear. A lot of them that have hubs have bolts versus quick release. Yeah, I don't really understand why. I mean, maybe because this is heavy, it's like 74.5 pounds because this is a steel frame. Maybe because it's heavy, they were like, yeah, you want to have quick release so you could take the wheels off for portability or for servicing. I haven't looked inside of these, but this is kind of a unique tube size, 20-inch fat tube. It's neat because it brings the overall height of the bike down. It's going to lower standover height a little bit. It makes it kind of fun looking. It makes it compact. This really isn't a very long bike considering it has fat tires. My point earlier was that finding replacement tubes for these, if you got a flat, might be difficult.
Yeah, I think at this tube size, it's becoming popular on some of the...
So the diameters...
The new folding bike one?
I guess that's true. That's within the last year, they got the Saunders Fold X or whatever.
Yeah, okay. It seems to be kind of one of those... It's becoming more popular with this type of bike. I don't know.
My takeaway is, if I was going to buy this bike for myself, I might also order some spare tubes. And then the whole quick release thing, 9mm skewers, it's a little bit narrower. I was looking at these plates down here trying to figure out if maybe you could mount a front rack or something like that. There's a lot of potential here if you're creative and handy with tools. I didn't see as many mounting points in the rear. We do have one hole right there, but in terms of like fenders and stuff, if you were riding this in the rain, it might kind of splash right up into the battery and seat. What's interesting about the new Scout model is that they took the battery from here and they put it here, and it seems like they stretched out the seat again to make this a little bit longer and more comfortable, possibly.
Yeah, and I guess the other challenge is, given that there is no adjustable to the height, really, if you want to get a better extension of your leg, you kind of have to push yourself back further. Yeah. But there's only so much you can do with that. I think that was one of the things we were noticing earlier.
Yeah, when we do the ride test later, I mean, my feet are kind of up in my chest, and people have said that. It's a little bit more like a scooter. You've got your trigger throttle right here. It's powerful. The bike goes up to 25 miles per hour is what they advertise. I got it up to almost 24, right. And we are on private property here. We're in the Brooklyn Navy Yard, and we have a pass to be here. We're testing in a parking lot. Technically, this is illegal in New York City because it has a throttle. Also, it's illegal pretty much everywhere else because it goes 25 miles per hour instead of 20. The motor is 750 watt nominal, 1,000 peak, so they are just right there at the line. The law around electric bikes is 750 watts, 20 mile per hour top speed. Class 1 would be pedal assist only, which this does have pedal assist, so you could potentially just disconnect this throttle, take it off, and maybe you could enter the password on the display and bring the top speed down to 20 and make it legal. But as it stands, we're kind of bending the rules here a little bit, and that's again why we're in private property, and we're doing our best to be safe with this thing. So coming back to the frame, steel, which is sturdy, and it has some vibration dampening qualities, like in terms of the fork, but it's also heavy and it can rust. And so when we were looking at this before, I was like, wow, this is, look at this, like double crown going on up here. And then I turned it and I realized that the fork crown and like this brace right here is actually colliding with the down tube section. You can see the paint's a little bit nicked up here. And it seems like nice paint, but there are some scratches just from doing service. I don't know what this looked like when it's brand new, but I would expect that there's gonna be some rust on this.
Yeah, it could be a challenge. That's one of the things with steel over aluminum, that aluminum doesn't really rust. You can have other elements to it.
Do you have any tips? Like if someone gets this, I don't know if it comes with touch-up paint or anything, but you might wanna just keep an eye.
Yeah, I would probably put some sort of like a little rubber piece on here, like maybe something with some double stick tape or something like that. Put a rubber part here. Actually, that was one of the things that we found, that the motor was actually a little loose when it came for service. So we kind of put a little bit of rubber and clamped the motor kind of in between here. Yeah. So it was like one of these like little improvements. And sometimes that's what we're finding with some of the less expensive bikes. We have to find different ways to maybe improve upon them. I mean, some other things, there's many other things that we would do. Like if it was my bike personally, I'd probably add some other parts and make some other changes.
Yeah, we're trying to help here. I mean, I want to be objective and not necessarily critical. It's fun. It's low to the ground. It can go over different terrain because of those fat tires. It's very stable because of the fat tires. You get a lot of strength from the smaller wheels. There's no suspension on this, just the tires, and they say 35 PSI. So that's kind of interesting because 35 PSI didn't have a range. It wasn't like 25 to 35. So when I'm riding on it, I'm a 135 pound guy, and like it felt a little solid. So I love that they have this banana seat that's a little bit more comfortable like that. Battery capacity is 48 volts, 11.6 amp hours. That's above average. That's pretty good, actually. I was not able to take it off, but it appears that it's about 7 pounds. I'm comparing that to some of the other batteries that have similar ratings, and it seems like it has kind of a light built into the back here. It was flashing on and off before when I turned it on. I'm not sure if that activates while you're riding or if you can control that from the display, but it also has a lock right here, so you can pull the battery off, you can charge it on or off the frame, which is really handy, just like most electric bikes. Great to have those options. It does seem to be measuring your rear wheel speed right there. And that might be just for the speedometer on the display, and it has a cadence sensor built in. So when I was pedaling this, I didn't have to push super hard. It's not like a torque sensor, but it's also not quite as fluid. As soon as I moved my legs like this, it was like, and it kind of took off based on whatever pedal assist level I was in. So coming back down to this motor, as I said, this is the BBS HD. I believe this is coming from Electric Cycles. I think they do a really good job, and they're one of the companies that have like shift detection built in, but that's not really relevant here because there's only one gear. 14 teeth in the rear, 40 up front, and it does use narrow, wide teeth. Okay, so that's gonna grab the chain a little bit better, which is nice because there wasn't a chain guide up here. There's not even a cover, so I'm riding along with my pants, and I could potentially get a little greasy and snagged up here. They do have this nice Super 73 branded chain tensioner in the back with that spring. That's gonna be great, hopefully keep it on track, but it does produce a little bit more noise and friction when pedaling. Some of the people I've talked to in the past have said like, the Bosch system, it has it kind of a gearbox and there's a little bit of friction. Well, this is gonna cause some of that same sort of friction. I like that they've got the branding here too and that horizontal dropout, so you can tighten that chain. This is the Z chain. It appears to be rust resistant. I'm familiar with those materials. And the crank arms are shorter than average. They're 140 millimeters versus 165, 170. I love the big oversized pedals. It's like FPD. I'm not as familiar with them, but they look good. They give you plenty of traction and surface area to pedal along. But again, this isn't like the most fun bike to pedal. Other little fun accents are this cup holder right here. You could put a bottle or a drink of whatever type. I'm not sure what you mount right here, but it's kind of like these other holes. It feels like there's some customization that could be done. And then you see all of the cables. They're really exposed on this bike, which might make it easier to work on. But this is reminiscent of a conversion bike, something that, you know, you had a frame, you had a motor, and you put them together. And they've done a pretty good job. It's just not as clean and integrated, and maybe not quite as protected either. You know, we were talking about how the frame collides right here. If those wires got in the way, you know, they could start to get worn a little bit, or maybe even cut in a perfect situation where you turned really hard. And then coming back up here to the cockpit, we've got the flat rubberized grips. They're not locking, and this one's getting chewed up because of that crash we had, or the gentleman had. We got the brake levers with the motor inhibitors. That's part of why there are extra cables, but I love that because with such a powerful motor, if you do move your feet, even kind of just for fun, accidentally, I think most people are going to be using that throttle a lot, it could activate the motor, and if you feel like you're out of control, you want to be able to pull those brakes. But the brakes, you know, it's mechanical, and the size on these rotors is 180 millimeters, which is like, you know, actually this is 160. Oh, okay, yeah, Chris and I were talking about that. I think I made a mistake, guys. I thought these were 180s. 160s, you know, for a bike that's like 74 and a half pounds with mechanical brakes, you don't have adjustable levers, you don't have as much of that.
Yeah, that's what, I don't know how it was set up. I think the guy, he built it himself, you know, out of the box or whatever. I don't know how it was set up from the factory, but he came in with 25 miles on it, and the brakes were at that point applying really no force at that point.
Oh my gosh, so he'd worn down the caliper, the pads already?
So there's a couple different things that goes on. You know, one is the cable stretch. When you have the cable brake, they're gonna stretch out pretty early on. There's different ways to address that. You know, you can actually try to stretch the cable a little bit before you know, to put the bike out into the wild.
And then the finger adjusts, so he could be...
Right.
How did you guys repair it? What did they do?
So basically, down by the caliper, you're going to actually extend, you're going to pull this cable tight. You have these different adjustments that you can use, but that's really for minor adjustments later on, but really you want to use this bolt and tighten up the cable here, as opposed to using these, because over time, you know, you're just gonna lose too much slack there.
So that's a good point for people who got this bike and you're thinking like, what am I going to need to tune up or keep an eye on? The brakes are important, especially when you're going faster than average with a heavier than average bike. These brakes, they're not as good as like a hydraulic disc brake with 160 millimeters, and you'd probably want 180 if it were up to me. So we might see that on some of the other, I didn't get super deep into what the Scout is spec'd with or what V2 is spec'd with. And then the other thing is like warranty. So if you ordered this from Kickstarter or you got it online or something, you may have to build it. I have no idea what it was like to build this bike or what adjustments had to be made, but it probably came in a pretty big heavy box. And you know, it said like 90-day warranty, kind of comprehensive on electronics and all that, and then lifetime on the frame. Most electric bikes have, you know, a couple years, like the higher quality ones have a couple years comprehensive. You can come into your shop, that kind of thing. So for a bike that's priced at roughly $19.99 for this particular version with the high power motor, you're kind of on your own. The service is a little bit weak that way, at least for now. Maybe we'll see these in some of the shops and stuff. And again, I don't want to beat it up too much. You know what you're getting, but that's a consideration. I think some of the early Kickstarter backers, it was more like $1,600 or something like that. And now they have a European version that goes 15.5 miles per hour to comply with their laws. I think they're a little bit more strict over there, and they actually enforce it more so than the United States. And that version, instead of having a mid-drive, has a rear hub motor. So in this case, I love that the battery weight and motor's fairly center. I like that it's relatively low. I mean, this is, you see rear rack batteries. At least this battery is in closer, it's well protected. You do have the cup holder. You've got some really nice reflective properties going on here. So there's these stickers on the side of the rims, and they look really good. I was looking at those inside earlier. It's a great look, and the rims, they do have that punch out, so it gives a little bit more cushion. It reduces some of the weight. These are aluminum alloy. These are, I think it's 14 gauge spokes, kind of standard, 28 hole, I believe, 20 by 4.25 on those tires right there, slicks. And then this front sticker is also reflective. So they've really nailed the style, I think, and you know, it's a fun little bike in some ways. I also really like where they position their kickstand. You can see that it's actually out of the way enough so that the pedals can go backwards. They're not going to collide. There's no adjustment with this or anything, but it actually works pretty well. I'm fine with that. And then there's the sensor for the rear wheel speed. Maybe a close-up on the Tektro brake calipers and stuff. And yeah, Chris, I might dive into the control pad options and stuff. Is there anything you feel like maybe I missed or that you care to say about it?
No, I think overall it's pretty interesting. It's interesting also because there's like a couple other brands that are producing a similar sort of bike that we were talking about. Yeah. That I think there's the guy that started.
It's like Marty Schlesinger.
Marty Schlesinger started Lithium. No, I'm sorry. It's a Voltage Cycles.
Okay.
And he produced some frame that I think he put out. Also, it seems like a little bit more robust. I mean, if I was going to build one of these, I'd probably want to put a little bit heavier duty brakes. But maybe you could even get one of these and put heavier duty brakes. But
yeah,
you know, it's also, from my perspective, it's really kind of like bridging that gap between like scooter and it really is in a lot of ways a scooter with pedals, right?
It reminds me of like a pocket bike, like the style. And again, a pocket bike is usually something the kid would take off road and a private property situation. You know, all the other Kickstarter videos I saw and some of them were on dirt and they're having fun and it's like really great film, quality and it's nice. But then there was the dude who was riding around New York City and it was like, careful, man. I mean, that's the whole issue right now with legality of bikes, and this is breaking that.
It's a big challenge for us because like we're really trying to encourage a more, a safe and more sustainable use of electric bikes. But I know there's always this tendency, and I like to have fun. I like to do different things, but the bottom line is we really need to operate in this community collectively, and I think sometimes we can get beyond that, and it can be really dangerous for the industry as a whole, and really the opportunity.
They've been confiscating the delivery bikes, and that's the whole thing. They're all throttle. So you guys, it's not to say this platform isn't capable or fun or even could be legal if you took off the throttle if you were in New York. But depending on how other people are riding it, this could get labeled as like one of the illegal bikes, and no one wants to have their 2000 bike taken. So I guess just be careful. And then if you do take that off, this one's a single speed. I think maybe they have another one that's like a 6-speed that's more comfortable to pedal, but there's no adjustability here in terms of like pedaling this bike it's just not the best experience. And then the other thing we saw is, the guys over at Luna Cycles, it seems like whatever a bike comes out that's popular, they put one out that's like a copycat sort of. It's obviously like struck a chord with people in terms of like the nostalgia and that vintage look, and gotta hand it to the guys, like the marketing and everything. If this gets more young people into electric bikes in general.
That's it, yeah. I mean, I think that as it was shared earlier, I mean, in the 70s, this was something that's really popular with gas motors, these type of like mini bikes, so to speak. So I think the challenge is just figuring out how it can operate in the legal framework that's available to us today, right?
Right. So I'm sorry I can't pull the battery off. I'm sorry I can't talk about the charger. I'm guessing it's like a couple pounds and 2 amps, so it might take 4.5 hours to charge this thing. The range on this, because you've got the smaller like wheel size, you're getting mechanical advantage right there, and you've got this super powerful motor. But if you're using the throttle a lot, I mean, it might be like 20 to 30 mile kind of thing. I'm not sure. I'd love for you guys to chime in if you own this and you have some experience. Here's the display. It's adjustable angle, not removable. I'm guessing it's a Bafang one, but that's kind of lithium branded. It does have what I believe is a 5-volt, 1-amp USB Type A port at the bottom, so you could add your own light, and that's something that the new Scout model has a big light built in, and that's really neat. But it's great that they had that USB. Powering it on, you just hold the little power button over here. See, it says Lithium Cycles, and the thing is awesome in its color. It's got battery with a percentage, which is great. We're at 100% right now. You get speed, assist level, there's 0 through 5. The throttle is hot on any level. So if this bike is on, just be very careful mounting or dismounting, because if you accidentally hit that, I mean, the bike's gonna take off. And this thing's pretty heavy and powerful. Okay, and then over here on the display, the button pad, it's easy enough to reach, but these buttons, they're kind of delicate, okay? So if you in fact, this one, it looks like it's already been snagged a little bit. I had a situation where I was wearing a coat once and I moved my arm and it like bent one of the buttons up. So this button pad is not my favorite, but this is also a Bafang part. So plus, minus, and then the power button in the middle. If you want to get to settings, you can double tap the power button, and there's lots of adjustments. You can change the, imperial, metric, brightness, auto off, digital readouts, clock, start passwords, so you can kind of lock your bike. So people could come up to this and who's going to run away with like a 75-pound bike? And then wheel size. And then there's more options down here, like battery voltage, battery settings. And there's even a place where you can enter a password and try to unlock and maybe adjust that top speed, but we weren't able to figure it out. And nor do I really want to endorse, like I was actually hoping I could find it so I could lower the top speed to like 20 miles per hour, and I couldn't figure it out. Again, chime in, maybe in the forums or in the comments here. I appreciate it. I'm trying to do this justice and go really deep here. But I think that's kind of it, power, trip meter, clock. If you press on a single press with that power button, it goes through some of the other readouts, like average speed, max speed up top. Down here it says odometer, range. Range didn't work for me. I was trying to figure out like arrowing up and down, and it just didn't work. Timer, trip distance. I'm gonna go back to the max speed. So the fastest I've gone today is 23.8 miles per hour. Yeah, it was fun. It was interesting to go that fast. They do have the wheel size set as 22 in the display, and that's because they're 20-inch rims with like, the fat tires. They're a little bit thicker, so the effective diameter is closer to 22. I think that's it. I might just hop on this thing, rip around this little, parking space for a minute. One of the things I've noticed is that it's just kind of loud because of the way that it's designed with that mid-drive and the chain tensioner and everything. So we'll keep an eye on that. I'll be right back, Chris. Get that kickstand stowed up right there. I'm going to use assist level 1 just so I can film at the same time. Not bad. I'm actually not hearing it a whole lot right now because of that lower assist level, and the environment I'm in is kind of windy, so I apologize for that. Now I'm up at assist level 5, and we'll see how it does. A little bit of lag going on with the sensors maybe. It just takes a second to spin down. I really like having that motor inhibitor right here, because see right now I'm just barely pulling on the brake and the motor is not active. As soon as I let go, it just takes right off. Okay guys, from here you should be able to see and hear that motor and that chain ring. There's a little bit of delay that we were talking about, but the narrow wide teeth seem good. There's no gears, there's no derailleur, so you don't have to worry as much about mashing. I don't think this one has shift detection built in. It just kind of does what it does. Seems all right. Let's give it a go. Here's that chain tensioner. I'm gonna go over some bumps and just see how the chain does. Bad, and you can see my knees are a little bit tucked up here. I have about a 30-inch inseam. I'm already slid back on the banana seat a little bit. And here's maybe riding with no hands. The smaller wheels make it a little bit wobbly, but the larger diameter, actually the width of the tires help to kind of balance that out, make it pretty smooth. This time I'm just gonna juice it with the throttle from standstill and give you like full power experience. Pretty quickly, up to past 20 miles per hour. Riding with one hand, so I want to be kind of careful. There's the braking. Oh boy. You can see the display and just some of the button pads options I'll be clicking through. There we go, pedal assist level 1. So it takes us up to like 14 miles per hour. Level 2. This is where I start to not be able to keep up. Like that 20 mile per hour top speed. Yeah, it's an interesting experience, and I'm purposely on smooth stuff because my back and neck are a little bit sensitive, and even though this has the bigger tires, the bike's a little bit stiffer. Hey Chris, would you mind hopping on real quick and
Sure.
Be careful? Maybe I'll take it down to 0 so you can just use the throttle. There we go. Oh. Sweet. You can hear the brakes squeaking a little bit. Awesome. How'd it feel to you, man?
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's definitely not a bike that I would want to pedal very much, but it's kind of a like scoot around town sort of thing. I think, you know, as mentioned before, it's challenging in a place like New York where it's not technically allowed. But I could see in other places where it is allowed, where it could be fun and interesting, and
Yeah.
you know, I'd probably want to upgrade some parts to make it a little bit safer. But outside of that, it's not so bad.
Another takeaway is, you know, I've got all the measurements back at the site, right? Like standover height and at length and stuff. One of the YouTube videos I saw, the guy was like living in an apartment in New York and trying to like pop it up to get into his elevator. And that's a challenge with many bikes, but especially when you have a little bit of a heavier situation. And then the coming back to like, you know, that's the kind of bike that Chris carries. Do you know how much is that one, Chris, roughly?
How much does it cost?
Yeah.
About $4,500.
$4,500. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a super premium, like folding compact bike. It's shorter, it's got suspension. I mean, you know, that's like elite. And then we're coming to something like this that's a couple thousand or maybe less if you're in Europe. To me, this is still kind of expensive. There are cheaper bikes out there. A big takeaway for me is awesome. Like, we're excited to see electric bikes taking different forms and stuff. I imagine that this is gonna get cheaper over time. We'll get different options. But pick a bike that really fits your needs. Like, if you like this style, awesome. But there are so many electric bikes out there right now. And when I see articles on The Verge or whatever, they're like, it's the Tesla of electric bikes. I mean, it's all marketing. There's so many electric bikes out there. And I love that in some ways, the fact that there's some copycats right now, it speaks to like how cool this bike is. But make sure that it's gonna work for you and that you're gonna be able to take care of it. I wish that I could open this up and tell you if it's a sealed headset. I wish I could, you know, same thing with the bottom bracket and stuff. I know that motor's a little bit nicer because the guys at Electric Cycle do a great job. I like the way this is laid out. I like that they're improving it, you know, continuously. If this is the first electric bike you got, like, take a minute, look around, figure out if it's the right one, especially because you don't have any like really warranty support after those 90 days and you're all on your own. The first electric bike I got, I was disappointed with. I spent about $2,000 and I got it, and it didn't live up to like the marketing hype that I'd seen for that product, not this product. And that's part of the reason I started the site. So again, the takeaway for me was I wanted to review this bike like a year and a half ago. I saw one in California and I contacted the company and they were like, no, hold off, that's a prototype. But someone had bought it there was a prototype, but it was like someone owned it and the headset was kind of loose. And so like this is a very refined version compared to even that. And we still have like kind of a loose motor thing and the brakes. So again, this is not meant to be too much of an attack on that. It's just, you know, the crowdfunding thing, there's some trade-offs with that. And if you're a young person and $2,000 is a ton of money to you, make sure you can check it out at a shop first or something, or know what you're getting into. I guess that's it. For the full write-up on this, I'll see you back at ElectricBikeReview.com. Of course, have fun out there, ride safe, chime in with any other thoughts you might have to help people out. I do these videos sometimes, again, I'm being a little bit more critical because there are so many positive videos out there that don't even talk about some of these negatives. They don't even get into it, and maybe they don't have like the insights. They're not looking at bikes every day like I am. But I welcome your feedback, and some people chime in, they're like, I love my bike, it's been nothing but awesome. And I'm like, great. I'm not being paid for this review. I'm not affiliated with this company. I just happened to see it and I wanted to do this. That's the whole reason I do the site, to try to help you guys out. So anyway, ride safe, have fun. And Chris, thank you so much for, you know, doing your best to be impartial here and give me some perspective from a shop.
Yeah,
because you guys are repairing this for the, like, you didn't sell this.
Yeah.
They brought it to you for help and you're helping them.